It's 2020 and the cabin fever's setting in. Just finished baking my 5th loaf of banana bread while listening to a video essayist tell me why Tiger King is a Scorsesean masterpiece, when all of a sudden I noticed that my phone is ringing.
Hey, man, I just thought of the best idea on how to get rich over lockdown.
Immediately, my mind is abuzz with tech startups and business ventures that are gonna have us bawling like a DaBaby music video.
Alright, hear me out. We become bounty hunters, right? Isn't that so sick?
And to be clear, we actually took this seriously. We assembled a team, we figured out gear, equipment, we even prepared to get our bounty hunters licenses, which are both a good thing and easier to acquire than they should be. I was ready to bring them in warm or bring them in cold. Now, all that was left to do was to track down our first criminal. And by criminal, I mean single mother with an overdue parking ticket, because that's what 90% of real-world bounty hunting actually is. A realization that, once we discovered it, kind of killed our teenage fantasies of becoming the new Avengers. But what if we had taken to the streets? That was the question Mark Millar asked himself when he wrote Kickass. Based on his own experiences growing up as a comic book nerd with dreams of donning the cowl, Kickass stars Dave Lazowski, a comic book nerd with dreams of donning the cowl. Dave quickly gets in over his head, almost dying on his first suit up and eventually stumbling into Hit Girl and Big Daddy, a father-daughter superhero duo who, like him, have a bit of a screw loose, but unlike him, have the training and firepower to back it up. But I love so much about this premise is that Kickass just takes place in our world, and as a result, everything is so much more grounded. This of course does lead to some of the cynical humor, the haha, if anyone tried to be Batman in real life, they just get shot. Case in point, the very first page of comic issue 1, where we see a man in a superhero costume jump off a skyscraper, only to have a car break his fall. We are then told how this individual was an escapee from a psychiatric hospital. And well, in some ways, I think a scene like this is exactly why people are so exhausted of dark and gritty. Like, come on man, I know the world sucks, I'm not trying to remind myself of that right now.
I'm tired, boss.
In my opinion though, this scene is brilliant. But in order to explain why, we need to first fast forward a bit. Dave and Big Daddy have been captured, not by genius supervillains, but by violent gangs that secretly run New York through payoffs and corrupt policemen. Things get extremely brutal, and mid-torture, Big Daddy admits that the tragic backstory he's told everyone is completely fake. His wife wasn't tragically murdered by the mob, she divorced him, and he basically kidnapped his own daughter and trained her to be an assassin from birth. The crime family was just an enemy for them to fight, and when asked why he would subject his daughter to all of that, he just says that he wanted her to be special, unlike him. Big Daddy is killed execution style in front of Dave, and while one might be tempted to call the violence in the issue gratuitous, I've always found Kickass's violence shockingly effective despite how generally desensitized to blood and gore I am, having grown up with unlimited internet access. I think this is because despite how ludicrously edgy Kickass can get at times, it never fails to root itself in human emotion. Big Daddy's death isn't sad because he's a hero or because it's so bloody. It's sad because in the moments leading up to his death, he was forced to confront that his fantasies, his desire to be special, to be more than just an accountant, led him to become a monster. He died thinking that he got his daughter killed. He spent his last seconds probably hating himself and cursing the fact that he ever even picked up a comic book, that he ever dreamed of a life of meaning. Afterwards, Kickass manages to trick 2 of the mobsters into beating him to death instead of just shooting him in the head. In the process, they accidentally break his restraints as he manages to grab 2 chair legs to use as makeshift batons. But despite his plan somehow working, well, just look at the situation. He is a bruised and beaten 16-year-old kid facing off against 2 large adults. And while disarming him, they both mock him. His hope, his attempt at making an underdog comeback. Once again, something that may at first be interpreted as cynical on behalf of the author. Without the plot armor, Batman would have died on his very first mission. But it's how exactly these 2 mobsters criticize him that is so fascinating to me.
Nobody got that drive. Nobody got those badass moves. Nobody did all those motherfucking push-ups.
And although I'm sure that none of us can relate to being hired muscle for the New York Mafia, Really try to put yourself in these guys' place. This is a weird thing to say in this situation. It's a strange admittance, or perhaps allowance, that maybe, just maybe, there is something to Batman being able to dodge bullets because he trained with Tibetan monks. But that no one can match Batman's tenacity. No one can motivate themselves like he can. No one is willing to try hard enough, and that level of superhuman willpower, that is what's fictional about Batman. We're gonna come back to this scene in a moment, but stick with me here for a second. It's no secret that in today's media consciousness, we seem to be slowly gravitating back towards hopeful and campy and away from dark and gritty.
Swear to me!
Just look at how many video essays regarding James Gunn's Superman you can find all basically saying the same thing in their own flavor. This Superman saves people, this one flies through buildings. This is how men should act, this one is toxic masculinity. That dead horse has really been beaten to a pulp, but I'd be remiss to not mention it because it really is in so many ways the premier example of what was popular in the 2010s versus the 2020s. And don't for a second think the soulless corporations aren't picking up on that either. The new superhero movie formula is looking a lot less Suicide Squad and a lot more The Suicide Squad. Even look at something like The Boys and compare it to its comic origins. The Boys has themes of pro-activism, anti-racism, fighting against corporate monopolies. The comic doesn't have anything, really. It's like the Sonic.exe of superhero comics. It's a deeply cynical and kind of hate-filled exploration into the questions philosophers have pondered for thousands of years, like, what if Superman was Diddy? But I bring this all up because while so many people compare The Boys with Invincible, another comic with a way better TV show adaptation, but I digress, instead, I have always viewed The Boys as being a mirror to Kickass. In their graphic violence, in their mocking of certain superhero cliches, and in just how hard they both try to shock the audience with their edginess. It was probably the hardest part of rereading these comics for this video. And yet, despite the edginess, Kickass is a story about hope.
Thank you.
But then suddenly, the lights go out.
Except me.
Hit Girl makes her superhero entrance, killing the mobsters and saving Kickass's life. So, do I think Mark Millar's message is to train your daughter to be an elite assassin or to drop your 9-to-5 and become a masked crusader? Well, no. And I think he makes that pretty clear if you decide to read the whole comic. That said, what's so beautiful about this scene and the series as a whole is that Mark Millar doesn't distinguish heroes by who can shoot webs and who can't. It's about courage, bravery. Had Dave decided to give into despair and cynicism, Hit Girl wouldn't have made it in time. He would be lying on the ground with a bullet in his head, just like Big Daddy. And I find it so poetic that later in the series, Dave is put into a situation almost identically like Big Daddy's here. He begins to curse the fact that he ever became a comic fan, that his parents didn't stop him, encourage him to do something more productive with his childhood. But then he remembers. He didn't keep reading week after week because he idolized Batman's money. The moral was always about helping others, and that every tight spot has a solution, and that giving up is never an option. What better lesson is there for adult life? And as Dave's vision of his parents fades, he finds the inner strength to keep fighting. Keep fighting until he manages to outsmart his attackers and save himself this time. Kickass captures the wonder of why superheroes being real is such a fun idea in the first place. That they are just regular people living in a dull world but deciding that they need to do something to fight the injustices around them. This is what so many people wanted My Hero Academia to be. A hero who is the greatest not because he's the strongest, but because his body moves to save someone before he even has time to think. This is a story that needed to take place in our world. We needed the colorful suits and the catchphrases and the one-liners to contrast with the cynical and gritty realism that we exist in day to day. And in the final issue, we make a callback to that very first panel. You remember the one? Once again, a man stands atop a skyscraper and takes the plunge. Only this time, we see the effect that Kickass and Hit Girl have had. They've cleaned up the city and inspired hundreds of others all across New York to stand up for their communities. And this time, his gadget works. He glides through the air to the awe and astonishment of the crowd below. And even though Kickass has retired by this point, we see that his legacy lives on to inspire so many more.
How far would you go to help your fellow man?
Thank you for watching. God bless, and have a wonderful night.